From The Flash trying its best to run but falling flat on its face, to Shazam Fury of the Gods facing the audience's fury. These are the biggest DCEU movie flops of all time. Everyone knows that DC's been going through a rough patch lately. Its top brass hoped The Flash would finally smooth the field for them. Unfortunately, it was the studio's third failure in a row. The film has broken all the wrong kind of records, like the biggest second-week earning drop in the cinematic universe's history, dropping by 73%. Even half-price tickets aren't motivating people to watch it. That's not all. Box office analysts say it's about to become the worst movie in the studio's history, losing an estimated $200 million. The only question is, how low will it go? To be honest, this failure is shocking. After all, Sasha Calle's Supergirl was amazing. Ezra Miller's Flash has been entertaining, and the movie brought back Michael Keaton's Batman. But here's the problem. Putting Batman in the limelight in a Flash movie was the wrong call. People wanted to see Henry Cavill's Superman. Instead, they got newcomer Sasha. To make matters worse, the film's key moments were leaked online, so people didn't want to waste their time going to the cinema. The movie had a bad combo of poor luck, superhero fatigue, and all the uncertainty going on with James Gunn and Peter Safran's DC revamp. Fans just don't know what to expect. Some pointed out that The Flash was trying to be DC's answer to Spider-Man No Way Home, but clearly it fell on its first lap. The studio should come up with their own plot twists instead of competing with Marvel. It seems like they never learn, because it's not the first time it has happened. Justice League is another painful example of a massive flop. This failure again sent shockwaves through the DC universe. Much like Ezra Miller's solo adventure, the studio was banking on this team-up to be its saving grace. But you can't just unite all your best superheroes and hope for the best. You need a team that has chemistry and a united front. And what did fans get? A Justice League that never became a proper league. It felt more like a bunch of solo acts out of sync. That defeats the point of a team, don't you think? Also, you'd think you'd witness some explosive powwow action from the bunch, but instead, they all fizzled like a wet firework. But you know what? I can sympathize with this flop, because its biggest issue was a sad failure in leadership. DC turned the Justice League into a battlefield between Zack Snyder and Joss Whedon. I'm not getting into their internal beef, but the movie sure suffered for it. You can even see it in its filmography, where Snyder's dark vision and Whedon's lighter touch clashed harder than Batman and the Joker. There was a clear divide, for crying out loud, and the directorial divide extended to their respective fan club, who didn't show up at the theaters. The 39% Rotten Tomato also left a sour taste in moviegoers' mouths, causing Justice League to bomb the box office, earning $96 million on its opening day, the lowest opening of any DCEU movie at the time. At least its superheroes went on to get their own franchises, such as Wonder Woman. But was her run successful? Well, Wonder Woman 1984 begs to differ. This sequel's predecessor was a critical darling, being the DCEU's best-reviewed movie to date, and boasting a 92% Rotten Tomatoes score. Trust me, it doesn't get better than this. Naturally, viewers had sky-high hopes for the second part. It had all the ingredients to be a smash hit. Pedro Pascal's Max Lord had potential. Kristen Wiig's Cheetah was making fans roar. Of course, the star of the show, Gal Gadot, was already a crowd favorite. Everything looked good on paper, but when the movie dropped, it was a complete disaster. It lost about $100 million in the box office and couldn't recover the bucks used in its $200 million budget. The studio's executives tried to blame COVID, but the audience made it clear that they hated it. So, what went wrong? For starters, Wonder Woman's lasso didn't land on target. Fans wanted her to bring the wonder back, and all she brought was nothing. What was the point of resurrecting Steve? And what was up with that 80s theme? Instead of putting us in a groove, the nostalgia felt so forced. Many viewers thought it felt like a watered-down version of Stranger Things. Plus, you'd want to see a Lex Luthor-level bad guy in a DC flick, right? All we got in the name of a baddie was Pedro, as a boring con artist with a fancy suit. Potential wasted. These sleep-inducing villains have become an alarming DC norm. The Suicide Squad had the same disappointing problem, and it contributed to its epic box office flop. I wish I could use the word epic positively here, but the movie's earnings gave me no choice. Making just $167 million, it became DC's least profitable venture, at least at the time of its release. Even though the franchise had the potential to be a blockbuster, it had many areas that needed sharpening, starting with the antagonist problem. Everyone loves a good villain, but this flick didn't deliver the menacing baddies fans craved. And then come the main heroes, more like anti-heroes, that really went rogue. Despite the star-studded cast, This squad couldn't pull off a slick heist on the audience's hearts. To put it briefly, the Suicide Squad had nothing to offer other than the brand. Okay, it had Margot Robbie's iconic Harley Quinn and Joel Kinnaman's Rick Flag from the David Ayer flick. But Rick died, and fans never got to see Robbie knock it out of the park like she did the first time. Some would say that Margot didn't get enough time to shine. Maybe in her own movie she would. But Birds of Prey proved that a solo flick isn't always the answer. Instead of fully letting Harley into the limelight, it treated her worse than her puddin' did. You can see it in her wacky antics, which felt more like a cartoon. Even her cartoon series on HBO does a better job than that. It's no surprise that it underperformed at the box office, falling about $20 million short of its predicted domestic box office earnings. The international scene wasn't much different, with the movie only hauling in $48 million. It seems like the whole world agreed Birds of Prey swung its mallet too hard and missed big time. But wait a second. She wasn't alone, was she? Margot had gathered a new all-female squad, wanting it to be a female-centric flick. Honestly, that would have been a sick slap in the face for the Joker and his toxic relationship. But I'm sad to report that despite the fierce feathers in this flock, the Birds of Prey failed to fly. They should have been a force to reckon with, but all Quinn's die-hard fans got was a bunch of sidekicks, all looking lost. Much like Justice League, they lacked the dynamic spark that makes a superhero ensemble shine. And if you were waiting for some badass moves, you'll keep waiting. The fight scenes lacked the wow factor, making you think, are these the Birds of Prey or a tame canary show? What's a superhero movie without kick-ass action? Again, this problem popped up in the disastrous team-up of Shazam! Fury of the Gods. This sequel suffered the same fate as the Wonder Woman franchise. The first part wowed viewers, making a lasting impression at the box office. Then the second chapter comes along, ruining everything. It only brought in $30 million at a budget of $125 million. That gave it its unfortunate title, the lowest-grossing DCEU movie. But here's an eye-opener. Shazam 2 might have been allowed to fail. Its lazy marketing never created the buzz it was supposed to. Most people didn't even know it was released. If you look closer, the movie didn't fit into James Gunn's new vision for DC. So he might have given up altogether, dumping it at the box office. Now that's just cruel to the cast and crew's insanely hard work. Even Zachary Levi wasn't happy about it, saying poor marketing was the sequel's downfall. But I admit, the story wasn't all that promising either. In a star-studded lineup of Lucy Liu, Helen Mirren, Rachel Zegler, and more, it packed a weak punch, wasting away their potential. Sadly, it was DC's first failure in 2023. With The Flash's recent stumble, it clearly wasn't the last. Now everyone's setting their sights on Superman Legacy, hoping it can bring the super factor back into the studio's superhero world. So, from Shazam! Fury of the Gods facing the audience's fury, to The Flash getting caught up in its own speed and falling flat on its face. Those were the biggest DCEU movie flops of all time.